Hopefully I'm not your first class of the day, but if I am, welcome back. I have a great guest for you guys today, and before we get started, I do want to touch a little bit about the children's wear industry in general. But quick flash of some reminders. Remote guidelines to please use your raise the hand button if you want to speak, and to type immediate or pressing questions in the chat function. I'll always be paying attention and be able to respond to you guys there. If you're speaking, please turn your camera on. It makes a huge difference to both me and our speakers to see your faces and interact with you directly. And if you raise your hand, please preemptively turn your camera on so we can prevent a gap from when you're called on and when you begin to speak. Please always only unmute yourself when you begin to speak, and a reminder that this class, as all are, is being recorded. Lecture prep questions have been coming in regularly to me. You guys are doing a great job with these. Just a reminder that you need to do 2 before the semester is over. Emailing me the questions in advance of class, answering one of the questions in class and asking it in class, and then sending me back that answer after class, the day of class, in order to get credit for that day. Quick flash of social media. I did put up a spring breaks extra credit, but I guess you guys were all off doing fun things because I didn't get any responses. So be sure to be following me on Instagram in particular at Prof. Caroline FIT, and Twitter, Faces and Places FIT, and then you can also view these classes on YouTube or previous classes if there's any of interest to you guys. And we have a Facebook page as well, Faces and Places in Fashion. Quick flash of our schedule. I cannot even believe we're on week 9 already, although the weather in New York at least is starting to feel like a real spring weather. Today, as you know, we have Zaheda Moosa, who is the design director for Betsey Johnson Kids at G&W Industries. Next week, Demetra Williams, who is an FIT alum, is joining us. She's a founder and CEO of Mitra, which actually she just launched about a year ago, and she's also been designing on the side. So she has, with Helmut Lang rather. So she has a really great experience about getting your business off the ground. The following week is Bijou Abiola, who's Director of Consumer Insights and Strategy at L'Oreal. Will give us a little bit of a taste of what it's like to be in the beauty industry. Owana Botez will join us the following week, a costume designer in theater, opera, and dance. And then Rachel Landy is a Vice President for Global Merchandising at Kate Spade. She'll be joining us in week 13. And week 14, to round us out, Fashion Services Network will be joining us with a panel. Week 15 will be your final. The final is basically a take-home essay based on your experience here in class. So the more notes you take and the more direct comments you can make about your class experiences, the better you will do on that final. You'll have about a week to complete that between week 14 and 15. So just to touch quickly and briefly about children's wear, as it is a little bit of a different animal from women's wear and other main areas of focus here at FIT, for the most of history, children were dressed just like miniature adults, and there wasn't too much difference between what a grown-up woman was wearing and her child, her daughter, or a grown-up man was wearing and his son. And by the end of the 1800s, their clothing began to look a little bit different and kind of took on the look of uniforms, which you can see kind of exemplified on the right side of the screen with the way that the little boys are dressed. Girls' outfits were dark with mid-calf skirts, stockings, and high-button shoes, and clothes were made extra large so they could grow into them and were mostly hand-sewn. The William Charter Company began in 1865 and became one of the largest children's underwear companies, and today it is known as Carter's, which is actually still has the largest, if not, or maybe one of the largest, but the largest share of the children's wear industry today, which is actually still quite small comparatively to some of the companies that have a very large share in women's wear. You will note, and something we can chat a little bit about with Zaheda, is just how varied the children's wear market is and how many different vendors there are, so that everyone has a lot smaller of a pie than you would maybe see in a women's wear floor. Following the wake of the women's wear industry, the children's industry followed, which was in the late 19th century. Manufacturers were able to make sturdier clothing, and sizing became more standardized after World War I. The influence of TV and radio caused mothers to dress their children like people they saw on screen, and advertisements became directly targeted to children, and each age group was influenced by different programs and stars as TV was on the rise. One thing that is really important to note that's very different about children's versus women's, which may sound obvious, but is definitely a little bit of a culture shock if you ever make the transition between the two, is just how many different size zones there are for children's wear. Kids grow fast, and so they size out of things fast, which makes a very nice demand for a customer base. But at the same time, it also means that sizing and getting the right designs right for the right sizes is a really big, important part of the job of a children's wear designer. So Leia and infant is the newborn to 18 months age group, and then you move into toddler, which is like 12 months to 5 years, and then into big kid, which is 5 years to 14 years. And it's really interesting. Personally, right now, having a 5-year-old, it's a really big challenge transitioning from that toddler look into the big kid look, and trying to find that sweet spot of what works really well for a 5-year-old when it could be also something that a 14-year-old might need to be wearing. The industry debates whether the traditional size categories really reflect a child's age and maturity level. I will say my 5-year-old is typically in a size 8, so in my case, it's not always exactly lined up, but I think for smaller kids, it is a lot of times. And today, about 1/3 of children and adolescents in the US are overweight or obese, and so a traditional sizing is affected by this. And I think that's something that we are seeing a lot more prevalently out there, is the offering of big sizes or plus sizes in kids. And preteen sizes for girls and boys, also called prep, student, or teen, typically offer more sophisticated styling than girls and boy sizes. As I was just touching on, there I think is definitely a marker for that older big kid versus the younger big kid, and it really changes when they start to pay attention to fashion. Some areas of note: testing and safety are much stricter in this category. There are a lot of safety precautions to take into account. Drawstrings are a challenge. Buttons and how they pull are a challenge especially when you're dealing with baby sizing. Licensing is a big part of success in kids, which is something that Zaheda will be able to touch upon with Betsey Johnson's license. Recent increase in challenging gender norms, I think that has changed a lot of the way that this entire market is looking, as people are less concerned about their girls wearing pink and their boys wearing blue. And big kids are now greatly influenced by social media, which is a much newer phenomenon. The fact that most 10 to 12-year-olds already have their smartphones and are able to react very quickly to what other people out there are wearing really changes how fast they are adopting trends and how much trendier those kids are dressing. Does anyone have any comments or questions before we switch gears to chatting with Zaheda? Anyone? All right, well, please join me in welcoming Zaheda to the screen. She is the design director at Betsey Johnson Kids. She's a graduate of the Art Institute in Philadelphia with a bachelor's degree in fashion design. And she is a design director specializing in girls' apparel with 10 years of combined design and graphic experience. She has a reputation for designing innovative and meaningful differentiated product that disrupts the marketplace and create excitement for customers. She has designed and developed garments featured in reputable stores such as Babies R Us, Nordstrom, Macy's, Lord & Taylor, as well as off-price retailers such as Ross, Burlington, and TJ Maxx. In her current role at G&W Industries, a large children's wear company, she oversees design for Betsey Johnson Kids License and Separates. Welcome, Zaheda.
Hi, how are you?
Good. You look
can
nice
hear
and
me okay?
Yeah.
All right,
Am I coming?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Great. Awesome. Well, I just gave a very high-level description of what you do and what you're all about, but if you could give us a little bit more detail around your career path and how you've gotten to where you are, that would be great.
All right, so I went to the Art Institute of Philadelphia, and it's funny, I actually was going to go there for interior design. And then when I went for the campus tour and everything, I didn't like it anymore at all. It was like very measurements and layout plans and everything, and I abruptly switched to fashion. So that's kind of how I landed in fashion, and I ended up really liking it. And then I've been in every role from just like an art department assistant to a graphic artist, an assistant designer, and then in this role as a design director. So kind of bounced all over the place, but always in children's.
Yeah. How important do you think it is to have that graphic design experience? under
I
your
think
belt?
it's huge, especially now. Most companies expect their designers to be able to do graphics as well. I know our company in particular, we just recently got one graphic artist that everybody shares, but before that, we were doing it ourselves. So it's just
Mm,
not really a separate role in most companies anymore at all. So I'm glad I was
yeah,
able to get those couple years of that experience. It's been a huge benefit to me.
yeah. Oh, that's great. How did you get your first job out of school?
Okay, so once I graduated, I knew I went to school in Philly. I wanted to come to New York. So I probably applied to 100 some jobs and I was willing
Oh
to
my
take
gosh.
anything to just get into the city. So I had a couple of interviews and this job made no sense. It wasn't linked to anything I wanted to do. It was an art department assistant that was basically photoshopping out the background of dresses.
Mm.
And I took it because I was like, you know what? It's going to get me in the door. So that's how I started, and that was at Gerson and Gerson. And then I just grew from there. I think
Oh,
they
that's
just
great.
needed to see me. I needed to be in the environment and then just hope for the best, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and by the time our paths crossed much later on down the path, I feel like your connections from Gerson and Gerson had opened new doors for you as well.
Oh, for
Um,
sure, for sure.
so
Because
even just getting your foot in the door is kind of the jumping ground.
yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. You really just have to get
Yeah,
your foot in the door, even if it's not your dream job. Just get in
yeah,
there and let people see you, let people see the talent you bring to the table.
yeah, definitely. So you just mentioned that you have that your company now has the role of a graphic designer in it. What does that job look like for them?
Okay, so we have one graphic artist, and basically we split them up throughout the week. So we have multiple licenses at G&W. So Little Ass is actually our private label, so they get the majority of time, and then anybody else will get a day a week. So his week basically looks like he meets with the designer, sees what group they're working on for that week. So say I'm working on swim, I'll give him a bunch of inspiration. We'll talk about what I'm thinking for that, and then he just gets to work on those graphics. He's basically a miracle worker. Like he's figuring out what's in your head, translating it, and he's really good at it. I think
Yeah,
graphic artists, it's definitely a much harder job, I think, than even design because you're really interpreting what the designer wants.
yeah,
And it's really hit or miss
yeah,
because maybe you're just not
totally.
describing it right, but they get it. So that's his function right now that he just does it's prints, graphics, embroideries, you name it. He's switching it up. He even does labeling for us, button embossing, anything we need.
Wow. By show of hands, is anyone here interested in becoming a graphic artist? One hand. Two. Okay. Three. A few more. Great. Zaida, do you think that it's a good, even if you aren't necessarily interested in pursuing that path for your whole career, do you think it is a good place to start off and transition, or you think that it's better to just kind of hold out for an assistant designer job?
I think it's a good place to start out. If you have any level of interest in it at all, obviously, if you hate doing graphics, then don't. But if you're someone
Yeah.
who's like, oh, I could do a floral print, I don't mind dabbling in this, I think it's a good jumping point
Yeah. That's good advice.
for sure.
Um, so you touched on it a little bit before about mentioning your private label within the company, but your company G&W holds a lot of different licenses
Yes.
for different children's wear brands. Can you talk about what that it looks like and what that actually means?
Yeah, definitely. So we have Betsey Johnson, Layer 8, Nicole Miller. We just recently acquired Mario Lopez. So the process is
That's
definitely
interesting.
different. Yeah, it's
New,
really
right?
cool. Very new. It's going to hit
Yeah.
next fall. And
Oh,
his aesthetic's very cool. But anyway, so you meet
yeah.
this person, right? They don't really know much about Betsey is a totally different situation, but someone like Mario, he doesn't really know much about fashion or have an idea of what he wants it to be, but he does know what he likes and doesn't like. So you as a company basically come up with the concept, what his aesthetic is going to be, and present it to him. And then if he signs off on that, it's also with every style. So you're working in a group and the licensor has to approve all of that. So someone like Betsey is much more opinionated, where we'll send her something, I think until you get into a comfortable relationship. So when I first started, she had so many changes on every single style. And then now I'll send her something and I feel like she barely even looks at it and we're good to go because she knows
Yeah.
that I know the aesthetic at this point. And I think that's basically with every licensor. Even at the beginning, we had like forms that check off this, this, and this. There's guidelines that they have 10 days to get back to you with changes. You have 10 days to get back to them and show them the revisions and back and forth. And you have to send them the calendar at the beginning. Everything's
Wow.
very official.
Yeah.
But now I can just text the designer or something and she's like, okay, good to go.
Yeah. It's great.
So
And a company,
yeah,
so Mario Lopez is sort of a different animal because he's just a man who has nothing to do with design and is throwing his label on something because he's got his own brand. But
exactly.
Betsey Johnson actually is a fashion company and she has a women's wear company. I don't know if that's licensed as well, but
Yeah,
you
everything's
can't
licensed for her at this point.
for her. Okay. But you wouldn't, as a designer, you wouldn't typically use the same women's wear company and children's wear company together because typically the companies that you work with are specialized in the size zone that you want to be
Oh,
working in.
definitely, definitely. Yeah, even for
And
Betsy,
kids
I
is
think
such a
she has
specific.
like 12 different licensors between her jewelry, her accessories. It's all different companies. And then
So
we all
many.
collaborate with each other as well. So I'll collaborate a lot with bedding and socks because their prints and things are very interchangeable with children's.
Yeah, that's great. And it helps. I mean, it helps for her brand that they would all be married up. If she approves the
Definitely.
print for someone in one license, you'd think it would work for another license.
Usually. And that's where it was like
Yeah.
challenging at the beginning too, because it's a lot of things, right? You have all these licenses. You're not really sure. You're like, I did like it there, but now I don't like it here. So sometimes you end up spinning in circles, especially when it is someone like Betsy who has a strong design background. And I
Right.
mean, she could just come up with a trend out of nowhere and you're not seeing it anywhere else. And
Yeah.
it's and children's wear has to be very saleable. It's not couture, it's not on the runway. So when I think at one point she was into rock star cowboys and cowgirls, and it was like, how do I translate this into kids where someone's actually going to buy it?
Yeah.
So that's where it's like a little bit of a struggle, but we figured it out. It's definitely
Yeah.
challenging some days.
History probably helps too. When you can look back at what actually worked in the past, it probably
That's the biggest thing with
speaks
these
reason.
licenses. Yes. You could just show them, remember, this did really well. Because in the end, I mean, it's dollar signs, right? You're like, oh, that did do really well. Maybe we should just do that again.
Yeah. That's great. So I feel like this is a hard question to answer, but can you tell us what a typical week looks like for you in your current role?
So it depends on the phase, right? So right now, I'll just go through where I am right now. I'm trying to design spring for swim for spring 2022. But at the same time, you have your hands in so many things when you're in the design industry. So while I'm designing that, I have all sorts of production things coming in for my outerwear for fall 21 that's about to ship. So you're going through approvals for that, fabrications, buttons, whatever it might be. So you're doing the approvals, you're dealing with designing this new group. I also interact a lot with the buyers on what they're seeing on groups that we have shipping right now. So with Betsy, we do sleep, we do underwear. So those are constant ongoing categories, which we're probably doing about 8 collections a year.
Wow.
So yeah, it's constant shipments. So you have that back and forth with the buyers, those approvals. It's it's constant. So
Yeah.
you're designing the future and you're also working on the present, right? Because you're working on holiday that's coming in. You're approving all those things. You have things that are currently shipping, so those samples are fully coming in. We call them, PP samples, pre-production. So you have to approve those as well. And then anything that we're currently working on, we have fit samples coming in. So I'll have fit sessions at least 2 to 3 times a week to make sure that's going well. So you're living in about 3 seasons at any
All
point,
at once. Yeah.
all at once. So it's about balancing that. And I feel like when you're in multiple licenses, that is really challenging to get organized and be like, okay, I'm going to be on this group today. We're going to do the fits for this. We kind of have a system down at this point, but also with COVID, there's a lot less people. So things are crazy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your current situation with COVID? Are you like going every day, every few days?
Yeah. So we're in office 4 days a week. We're at a 60% capacity. So that's what we're working with. So
Yeah.
it's only 60% of our design team. I think design in particular, we're 6 people short at this point.
Okay.
So, but it's good. We have, all sorts of glass enclosures, all the safety
Yeah.
precautions. It's
Feel
really
felt
not
safe.
so bad. Yeah. And then Fridays we work from home.
Yeah. Oh, good. Anna, did you have a question?
It really was just what was going on for COVID and what you're
Oh,
doing during that time. But do you have Do you have that amount of seasons currently like coming at you right now because COVID has obviously changed up that pace?
So you are typically working in 3 seasons no matter what, but I do think some things were delayed because of COVID, so it's a lot hitting at once. So like my outerwear probably would have paced in over the last few weeks typically, but it all came at once in the last week. So I counted the other day, I did 148 submittals in one day, and that has never happened before.
Wow.
So COVID definitely backed things up, and yeah. So it wouldn't be as crazy. You're always going to be in 3 seasons, but it's going to come in over a couple of weeks. So it's not as crazy.
Thank you.
No problem.
What do you feel like has been the most fulfilling part about working in children's wear design?
Honestly, I love seeing someone at the beach or at a restaurant in something that I designed. I'm like a total fangirl when I see that.
That's
It's
so
just
fun.
so cute and it's so gratifying because you know all the work that went into it, but then when you see just some little girl so happy in it, it makes your day.
Totally. Yeah.
So
Oh,
I think
I
I
love that
really love
answer.
that.
That's great. And how did you end up in girls design? Was it just because of that first job out, or were you specifically interested in going into girls?
So it's funny, I was actually going to go into lingerie. That's what I did my portfolio on in school and everything. And then I just ended up really liking it. It's so much more, to me at least, it's just so much more fun. You could do crazier colors, you can do crazy graphics. Kids are, well, parents are just open to so much more for their children than they would be for themselves.
Yeah.
So I think it's a better opportunity to be super creative in a
That's a
fun way.
good point. Yeah. It's such a fleeting purchase because
Yeah,
of they outgrow it so
they're gonna
fast.
grow
So
out of it. Yeah.
yeah. Although personally for me working in kids, I felt like that was one of the bigger challenges because it becomes very price sensitive compared to
For
women's.
sure. Yes. I've never
Uh,
worked in women's, but I know children's for a fact. It's so price sensitive. It can be frustrating sometimes.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the company we worked at together, I feel like we were sitting around like, okay, if we remove this button and we change this
Yes.
stitch, we can save $3 or whatever.
Yeah, you're
Not even
constantly
three
trying to
three
strip it
cents.
down. Yep,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
Um, what's your favorite size zone to create for?
I would definitely say 4 to 6. So the baby range is, they're still not up and moving. So, I mean, it's adorable, but they're not up and moving. And toddlers, there's so many safety precautions. So,
Yeah.
like flip sequins were so hot last year and we couldn't do them for toddler at all. But in 4 to 6, you can get kind of crazy. And it's a
Yeah.
fun range. She's up, she's walking. Her mom's still shopping for her, so it can still be cutesy. She's not, a fashionista yet. So it's just like a really
Yeah.
nice sweet spot.
That's fun. I'm having a very hard time shopping for my 4 to 6 year old, but that's a whole nother.
It's hard. Well, you said she's an 8, right?
She's not really. I mean, if she wears a 6, it looks right on her, but she wants to wear a size 8 because she says everything's too tight.
Oh, that's
So
so
it's a real
funny.
challenge. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like once you get past 6, it's so hard because everything doesn't look like toddler clothing anymore.
No,
It's
I
more
know.
grown up, but they're not grown up. It's
Yeah,
it's different. My boys are in that
totally.
range right now too, and it's just
Yeah.
sweats.
Yeah. But also, I hear most of the time boys don't have such big of an opinion. Mine has got a very
Yes,
strong opinion.
for the most part. Yes, yes, very
Yeah.
true.
I'm hoping my son will be that way. We'll see. um, do you know a lot of people who switch between different industries, like between women's or lingerie or kids, or do you feel like for the most part people stick with what they start
I
with?
feel like for the most part people stick with it. I might see a switch between boys and girls, but that's the
Yeah,
extent of what I've seen. I don't really often see anybody jump size ranges.
yeah, that makes sense. Which retail partner have you enjoyed working with the most?
I would say Bloomingdale's. So Betsey Johnson and JoJo Siwa did a collaboration in 2019, and it was exclusively for Bloomingdale's.
How fun.
And it kind of goes back to what you were saying
That's a good
earlier.
marriage. I missed
It,
that. That's cool.
yeah, it was amazing. JoJo Siwa was like a young Betsey Johnson, is what it felt like as we were designing it. It's just all
Yeah,
decked out and crazy. It just really, it was a good fit. And with
yeah,
Bloomingdale's, it's not price sensitive. So we were able to do all sorts of crazy things, which is something I always
So
wanted to
fun.
do in kids. And we didn't have to strip anything down at all. So by
Yeah,
far, and the floor setup was beautiful. Like you just get a lot of credit for what you did. They give you an entire floor setup. You see the whole collection together.
it's
It's
great.
it's great.
For
Yeah.
accessories too.
Yeah, we did so we collaborated with the Steve Madden team. And they did hair bows and backpacks and
Oh,
shoes.
so
So it was
fun.
just it was a whole floor setup. It did really good.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's also really fun once it starts selling really well too.
Yeah, of course. Who doesn't want to see that feedback?
Yeah. So one of our big topics that I've been talking about this year is sustainability, and just wondering if your current company is doing anything around that, or if it's flying around with any of your customers as
So
a
we've
big
talked
topic.
about it a little bit in layout and blankets. It hasn't been feasible as of this point. And I feel like as of COVID, a lot of our business has shifted into off price. The department stores, it's just not there anymore. And for off price, it's really hard because of the price
Yeah,
point. So I
yeah,
feel like we're not there yet. I do see it coming, but we're definitely not there yet.
yeah, yeah. Um, Students, I feel like I haven't really touched too much about off price this semester, but one of the things that's interesting, and you may be a surprise for people who are not in the industry to find out, is that off price orders actually get placed at the same time a lot of times as the upfront orders that you would see for a department store like a Macy's, a Bloomingdale's, a Dillard's. But the off-price customers are obviously a lot more sensitive to price, like a Ross or a Burlington or a TJ Maxx. But they still come to market and shop and work with the design teams to get things to be in their price zone, and they make upfront orders in advance of the season. It's not their entire open to buy the way it would be for like a Bloomingdale's, but it is a big chunk, like, I mean, 30 to 50% depending on the store.
Yeah,
So
definitely, definitely.
and as a company that works with off-price retailers, they actually are much easier to work with in some capacity because you don't have a lot of back and forth, and there's not conversations about who's going to pay for marketing or who's going to pay for markdowns at the end of the season. It's kind of like you get the order up front and it is what it is, and that's the end of that story.
Exactly. Yes.
Which is nice. And over the last few years, they've been some of the best growing
By
stores
far, I
as
think
well.
that's why G&W has found such a niche with them. They're growing, they're easier to work with, but mostly they're growing. Their orders are getting bigger and bigger every year. They've taken quite
Yeah,
a chunk of the market.
yeah. I feel like it may. I feel like people still really enjoy that treasure hunt factor of shopping at
Yes,
an off price like a TJ Maxx, and especially with COVID and things, it's like an actual reason to go into a store versus shopping online.
yes, definitely.
Um, so you personally have a really amazing social media presence, and I feel like since I have a lot of aspiring designers who want to launch their own companies, I didn't know if you had any advice to impart on how you kind of got yourself going on social media.
So I feel like lately I've been totally flaky. I haven't been posting since COVID, but the biggest thing I would say is don't be flaky. Show up every day. It's really important how often you post. You should be posting at least once a day, and you should be yourself. I feel like people can smell anything fake a mile away. If you're not being your true self, people aren't going to comment on it. They're not going to like it. It just doesn't feel real. So if you find a niche and if you see something that people are reacting to, try to run with that. And it is kind of like a hit or miss, right? Like you're just throwing pasta, something's going to stick. I had talked to a friend of mine. She has, I think, 200,000 followers, and that's what it is.
Oh,
She's like,
wow.
every day I feel like I'm just throwing something, and sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't. And I think you just need to constantly engage, have your, run a story every day. People like that. Comment back to people when they comment to you, and not just, a vague thank you. In real life, you wouldn't do that. It would be like a conversation. So pretend like you're having a conversation with this person so they have a reason to come back to your page. I think those were the biggest things that worked for me. And I would find accounts that were very similar to mine and like their things and follow them, but not just to get the follow back. I think the more you engage with them, you're going to attract people.
Yeah,
And
similar
it works
people.
for me. I just need to really start focusing on it again.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, it's been hard working remotely and then now being back in the office. I feel like it changes
Yeah,
everything.
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I just threw your handle into the chat room if any of you guys are looking to follow along. So it comes from a mom's perspective, but I feel like you take your fashion eye into it too, so it's really cute and fun to follow.
Oh, thank you.
Is there anything that you feel like you did while you were in college that has been super valuable to you? Any clubs or activities or internships that
So
you'd
I was an
recommend?
RA, so I wasn't able to do a lot of clubs, but I did study abroad in Italy for 6 months, and I would highly
Mm,
recommend that to anyone. If you have any opportunity to study abroad at all, just do it. Like I have
yeah,
zero regrets about that. I feel like it was such great exposure, and it was just it's a good time. College is the perfect time to do that.
yeah, yeah. That's good. That's good advice. What are some of the biggest trends going on in kids wear right now?
So it's so funny. This year, everything is about just comfy cozy. I think because of how many kids are virtual schooling. So like tie dye has been such a trend for us. Joggers and comfy tops, just different comfy fabrics. We normally do fleece, but we have like these really nice plush fabrics this year. And it's just been focused around that. And for spring, we have like these neon sherbet colors that are so nice. But nothing
Oh, that's
crazy
cute.
trendy or uncomfortable. That's where every single buyer that comes in, that's all they're like, the comfier, the softer, that's what they're looking for boys and
Yeah.
girls.
Oh, good to hear. I need to go check out what you've got for my picky kid. How do you feel like you stay on top of what the trends are in the marketplace?
So we used to shop a lot prior to COVID. We would do a Europe trip twice a year. And then we also have fashion snoops. So I feel like that's really good. They shop everywhere for you. They put trends together. You can look at their site. And then we also have a European service. So she goes and shops all over Europe. And then I want to say bi-monthly, she comes in and shows us all her samples.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So that's how we do it.
Um,
We see she didn't used to do children's. She recently started for us about 2 years ago. And that's been a huge asset because she's constantly shopping. Even if it's
yeah,
not every 2 months, I want to say at least once a month she's sending us pictures.
that's awesome. That's really great. Um, Students, by show of hands, how many of you have used Fashion Snoops? I feel like you have. I see about 5 hands, six maybe.
Use
I feel
what?
like you guys have free access to it. Am I right? Howard, did you have something to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
do.
didn't hear
Yeah,
what
I
you
feel like
said, that's
it's
why.
oh, oh, Fashion Snoops, or if you're using it or not.
I checked it out once.
Yeah, some of my students from the business school, I know definitely use it regularly for assignments and have found it valuable even for student work. But
Yeah, no, it's a
helps to keep
great
them.
asset. It's a good site.
Yeah, they do a good job. Um, have you ever had to lean on your network to move your career forward? Any stories to share?
So, are you referring to my social media network or just people I know?
Either one.
I feel like as my social media has really helped me out in the interviewing process because when people go through and they look at my Instagram, they understand my aesthetic and what I'm about, and I feel like that has helped me a lot. And for sure, every time I've been looking for a job, you reach out to people you've worked with in the past or someone that knows someone. For me personally, I feel like it's always worked out with a recruiter, but I have tried. And you just
Yeah.
don't know. Like even now, I'm looking for an assistant. So I've been reaching out to everyone in my network. It's just there isn't a, I feel like people left the city. I'm not sure what happened. It's a lot
Yeah.
harder than it has been in the past. But I
Yeah.
probably reached out to everyone I've worked with at some point to see if they knew anyone.
Yeah.
And we have a posting online, but it's
Send it
not
to
really
me.
bringing in a lot.
We may have some students here that are ready to go,
Yeah,
depending on
for
how
sure.
soon you need them.
Yeah, pretty soon. Okay. We've been looking for about
Yeah.
a month. Yeah, we've been looking for about a month. But I'd say, yeah, just in that way. Or if I've taken a freelance
Yeah.
somewhere, that's always given me a good connection as well.
That's a really good point, though, because I feel like we talk about networking, and oftentimes you think about it networking for yourself and networking up, but you need to network down as well because you get into this position where you need to make hires, and the more people you know, the more people you're talking to, or the better relationships that you've made and impressions that you've made, the more likely people are going to just kind of feed you
Yeah,
really
throw people
strong
at you. Yep.
candidates, which is great.
No, it's
And
true. Go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, you mentioned recruiters. I don't know if, do you have any advice on how you first got connected with recruiters, or, is it more just LinkedIn?
I want to say LinkedIn. Yeah, actually, the recruiter I use the most, she is from LinkedIn now that I think about it.
Yeah.
She just saw my profile, and at first I was kind of like, who is this? It's weird. You don't know if it's real or not, but I
Yeah.
shot over my resume, and she's found me my last two positions, and it's been really great between my portfolio and my resume. And I feel like she goes over everything with you first, so you don't end up going to this interview where it's just not a good fit. And
Yeah.
obviously, I'd say that now for the level I'm at. When I was an assistant, it was just, going online and trying
Yeah.
the best. I definitely wouldn't have used a recruiter for that.
Yeah. Yeah. But I feel like that is a really good point. And I'm blanking on if we've discussed it at all this semester, but LinkedIn is such a good, valuable tool that being connected to people just leads to more connections down the road. So
Yeah, I think
students should
it's
be
definitely
using it
underutilized
early.
for a lot of people. Make it
Yeah.
look good. Don't just,
Yeah.
type in random things. Make it look really good. And recruiters definitely go through it. And I think companies too. I constantly see that people have viewed my profile.
Yeah.
So I think it could lead to a lot of good leads.
Totally. Yeah, definitely. What do you feel like is one thing you didn't know when you first graduated that you kind of wish you'd known then?
One thing that I wish I would have known. I wish that I would have been more open to traveling for a job when I first graduated. When I look back at that now, like there was a apprenticeship in Paris, and I was kind of like, oh, that's so far. But when else in your life, right? When you first graduate, that's the time. I wish I would have done something crazy like that and just gone and
Yeah.
done it, because later on you're committed to that check and you're at a certain level, and it's much harder to just walk away. You're just committed to things in general. But when you're starting out, if you're an assistant, an intern, why not?
Yeah.
I'd say just take the risk and go somewhere and do it after COVID.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, you touched on what your most fulfilling part of your job is. What do you feel like is the hardest part about it?
I think what you were saying earlier, when you've designed something that you love so much and then it comes down to nickels and dimes and you have to strip it down. It can
Yeah.
be like, it's a part of the job, but some things, like, it's just frustrating. You're like, but that makes the garment. What do you mean we have to lose that snap? And it's silly things that you start worrying about. That if I don't
Yeah.
have this button detail or this zipper, this isn't going to sell.
Right.
So for sure, that's the part that sucks the most.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And I feel like the students even feel that even in school. I feel like I've heard from a lot of them in this class just how frustrating it can be that they're always being told, make sure it's saleable, make sure it's saleable, when you want to be artistic and you want to go for your vision. But at the end of the day, if you're going
Yes,
to go work for a retailer, that's
it
an
has to
important
sell.
factor.
Yeah.
um, what's your one thing that you wish you'd known? You said is maybe traveling abroad, but do you have like one parting piece of advice that you would tell a graduating student?
I would say for your entry level job, do not be too picky. I have seen a lot of my friends post graduation that are looking, even though in its assistant role, they're looking for a dream job in the exact niche that they want, the exact position that they want. And I feel like if this is something you really want, just get your foot in the door. You can start looking for jobs once you're in the door, but at least you have something on your resume showing you have experience. I There's multiple people I know that have just never gotten into the industry because of that reason. And you
Yeah.
see it years later, you're like, you could have just started anywhere. Like an art department assistant, I didn't want to be that. Who wants to Photoshop backgrounds out of dresses, right? Like that's such a silly position. But had I not done that, I couldn't have moved anywhere.
Yeah.
So I would for sure say that. Like, don't be so picky. Yes, you're valuable and you're amazing, but they're going to see that.
Right. Right. It will
You
shine
have to
through.
you have to be there for someone to actually see that.
Yeah. Totally. Oh, I love that. Where's been your favorite place to work along the way?
I definitely think GW by
Yeah.
far. It's such a nice environment. Everybody's so friendly. I've had the most opportunity to grow there. The owner is very product driven, so he's so passionate about it that you feel good to go in. They're good people.
Oh, that's great. A little bit of a refreshment probably from where you came from last.
For
With me.
sure, for sure. Yes. Yes. It was like the
Oh,
best leap. And he's such a fun guy. Like he comes up with these crazy ideas where normally it's the owner that's like telling you don't do that. He's like, "No, let's do a reversible swimsuit. That's a great idea. Let's try it." And he's very driven by that.
yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
fun.
mean, I'll touch on that. So I feel like I said this in our first day of class when I talked about my career path, but it is interesting how you cannot change the culture of a company no matter how hard you try. So that is an important factor with where you walk in the door. If it's a tough place to work, it's probably going to remain a tough place to work, even if you have the best attitude and the best people around you and a really, fun, loving attitude yourself. Unfortunately, that's not always something that you can change. And when it's bad, it's bad. You just gotta kind of keep looking and find something new.
No, it's true. It's like a hard pill to swallow when you're bringing a lot of positivity somewhere and it's just not coming back. But some
Yeah.
environments are just set up that way. It took me a long time to learn that.
Yeah.
And to finally find a place that wasn't like that, because the fashion industry can be up and down.
Totally.
Even in children's, where you would think it would always be very calm because who we're designing for are mostly still in diapers. It's not that serious. But
Yeah.
people get crazy.
Yeah. Do you feel like there are any like stereotypes of the children's wear industry that you would want to dispel or?
I don't know any stereotypes about.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
No,
I
don't know.
haven't heard anything about the children's wear industry.
Yeah, I mean, I feel
think a lot
like
of
for
people
me,
think it's boring, and I think it's actually fun.
yeah, it moves so fast.
It really does. And I always hear people are like, "Oh, but that's not real design." I have heard that before, and I'm like, "No, it's definitely real design." And it's pretty involved actually too, because I didn't like it either. There's a lot of safety measures that you have to take into play. So I definitely think it's more challenging.
Yeah. I agree on that front for sure. I don't know. I feel like stereotypes. I think one of the things for me was when I made the leap from women's to kids, I was just thinking there's all the millennials are going out and having babies, and this is going to be some huge boom in babies, which means there's going to be such growth in children's wear. But I didn't think about the fact that prices were so sensitive. Even for affluent people, I think prices are still somewhat sensitive because they're going to outgrow it. And I do think that sustainability is a much more prevalent thought in parents' minds these days. And so the secondhand use of clothing is probably taking away from the industry a little bit as well. And that's, something that people are combating and working on to make sure it's fresh and new and a reason to buy.
Yeah, definitely. There has to be a reason to buy. Some sort of emotional reaction. I feel like we're always looking for an emotional reaction to something. And that usually ends up being a bestseller.
Yeah. Totally. Marsha, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. Just a quick question. How do you guys do fittings on children?
We actually have little child-sized mannequins, all different ranges. We have baby all the way up to a size 12 at our company. And then we even have little weird heads that you can fit headbands and hats on. Those are a little weird.
So how are you able to tell if it will be uncomfortable on a kid, like itchy or tight?
Yeah, I think that's more just the hand feel of the fabric if you feel it. As far as tight, you can check that out on the form, but the softness, that's just something, it's the quality of the fabric.
Okay.
And you have to be cautious of that, like even like your sequin placements. If it's here, then you have something on the inside to prevent rubbing. I know I designed something that had sequins on the shoulders, and that was much more itchy, so it was something we didn't perceive it.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Yeah,
okay.
So you have to be really careful of your placement.
It's funny because even if you were to put it on a child, I don't know that it would help you much to find out whether or not it's comfortable. At least, like I've been talking about my child who's very difficult and says everything's uncomfortable. I can't even get to the bottom of what it is that's uncomfortable so that I can avoid it and do better on the next outfit. So I don't know that it would be much use to have a kid in the office telling you what they like or don't like.
Well, I know they have those tags in the back.
Yeah, tags. I actually came to the conclusion recently that seams are a big problem that I never had even considered.
Seams?
Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah, like if it's too, flappy, like there's too much on the inside of the seam.
Feel like the bulk of it inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I experienced that.
It took me like a year to get to that.
Like those itchy church dresses that I used to wear as a kid. They were always itchy underneath. Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah, tulle. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes, that's taken a downturn. I can't remember last time I put tulle on anything, and it's Betsey. You would think, but
Should be all about it.
she is all about it, but nobody buys it. So you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'd rather do a legging
Right.
that
And
only
it
has
adds so
a
much
seam down
cost
the
too.
center. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Does anyone else have questions? How's that?
Yes, yes. Actually, I have two questions. May I ask?
Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. I just want to ask, do you use a lot of embroidery on children's wear? Because I remember till now, I remember my small jacket that has a dog embroidery on it. So I know kids love that, and they remember that part, especially on the clothes, right?
Yeah,
And
I mean, we definitely still do embroidery. I remember when I first started back in 2007, it was much more popular.
yeah.
Not as much anymore. I feel like it's little hits, like maybe a few flowers around the neck.
Oh, okay.
In 2007, we used to do like a big Scotty dog on the front. It was great. That's definitely not a thing anymore. But
Okay.
little hits, sure.
Thank you for that. And one more question: do you some experience to involve like a group of kids in like a design parts, especially like maybe we're doing some like give them chance to choose some even like a design or colors or something.
Like a focus group.
Yeah,
That's
right.
cute.
Yeah.
So the last company Caroline and I were at used to do that a lot, right? Like they would have
Yeah.
surveys. Now, were we surveying moms more, or were kids ever involved in that?
It was in the tween market, it was kids, but in the younger zones, I think it was the moms.
And I know Gerson still does a competition once a year where they have a girl design a dress and the company actually produces it. And I think it's really cute. You can look at it on their blog, but they do it every year and the ideas are really cute. And they'll just pick the best one. And I feel like it's pretty close to the sketch. Obviously, they tweak it a little bit, but it's really cute. They're the only company I know that does that actually in the dress wear industry.
Yeah. I think KL actually used to be done in his children's classroom. They would design.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but definitely better to do it on a bigger scale and make a big deal about it on social media. I feel like that's really cute.
Yeah.
Mine would love that.
Yeah, you should join her. Gerson does it on their blog. Just go to their blog. They do it every year.
Oh, that's
and
so
you
cute.
see all these cute little drawings that the kids submit.
Oh, nice. Yeah, look at that. Who else has a question?
Thanks so much.
No problem.
Does anyone else have questions? I know I got a lot of lecture preps this week. All right, Marcia.
I just didn't know if you were through answering your questions. I didn't know if you were at that portion yet. Oh, okay.
Yes.
I actually have a couple, and that's really just because I have a son myself, so children's wear is kind of like my like that's like a second path that I would choose to go on if I wasn't choosing women's wear. So I actually am really interested in children's wear, and I just feel like there's like a lot of things that I should know in advance. So I might ask you two questions.
Go for it.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Hey.
Okay. So the first one that I had was, do you feel, I know you mentioned before earlier how you know, like with children's wear, you have to be mindful of like whatever you design, you have to make sure that it sells. And me, I'm interpreting that as something that is pretty like, I guess, what wearable, I guess we would call it in the industry. But for me, I was wondering if you feel like children's wear has the potential to become something more unconventional, especially, you know, considering how the styles that we have today are changing compared to what we used to wear throughout the past couple of decades. So do you feel like they have the potential to be more unconventional, especially considering Betsey Johnson's style? Or do you just feel like it's better if, you know, children's wear stays at like the standard that it's at now, where it's like just wearable, simple, and they grow out of it and move on to the next thing.
No, I definitely think there's pockets of unconventional that do really well. It could even be something as simple as reversible garments. In the last 2 years, those have done phenomenal for us, whether it's just a jacket or swimwear, so they're getting 2 uses out of it. And then I don't know if you've seen the jackets that turn into backpacks and stuffed animals.
No.
I forget the brand. I can send it to you after, but those are doing really well too. So I think anywhere you do shake it up, they do like that. Or even boys' coats where you can zip off the sleeves and then it's a vest. I think if anywhere you could take a risk and it would do well, it probably would be in kids, as long as it's adding a level of functionality to it or something fun that the kid would gravitate towards.
Do you think that is counting their age range? Like, I know obviously if they're toddlers, they really won't pay attention to what they're wearing, but do you feel like that would start at a young age, like around the 4 to 6, well, I don't know about 4, but like I guess 6 to 8 range, 8-year-old
For
range?
sure. I think
feel
my
like they're
boys
more bold
notice
these
all
days.
sorts of stuff like that. I got them these really cool shirts at Zara a couple weeks ago, and they actually had an applique pocket on it, but it was functional. So it looked like it had a fanny pack embroidered, but you could open the pocket and put things in it, and that's their favorite shirt. Like, this is so cool. It opens up. I can put things in it. So yeah, for sure. I would say around age 5, that probably starts, where they
Okay.
kind of care, right? You're in the store and they kind of care that it does something cool.
Yeah, I do for sure know that girls would be more focused on shopping for clothes than boys would. I know my son doesn't really care what I get. He hates clothes shopping. But I do feel like girls tend to be very opinionated when they're shopping for their clothes, from what I've noticed. So, and especially now, I feel like, especially with social media, they want something that will make them stand out on their YouTube channel or their Instagram page.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that's a big thing. But I think with boys, interactive things are really popular. Like if you go through an H&M, flip sequins, boys liked that. They had them on so many boys' garments. And then they have like this clear effect where you turn the shirt and it turns into a different image. And then you flip it back and it's a different image. So interactive has been an up and coming thing, and it changes every year.
Would that be like a glow in the dark shirt or something?
Yeah, even that is something interactive. I feel like boys are very into that.
Yeah, I see that they only get interested if it's like a graphic t-shirt with like their favorite video game on it or character, like something that they know other kids know, like the characters. That's the only time I've seen my son interested in his clothes.
Yeah, licensing is definitely bigger in boys. So I think any like functional little thing, they love that too.
Okay. And I guess another question that, I mean, I kind of want to ask you a third one too. I don't want to take up the time. But like the second question I would ask you
go for it.
is, okay, I'll ask the third one. The second question that I would ask you is, do you feel like all fashion brands carry that carry children's clothing share a similar perspective about kids when they're designing and like when they're merchandising a collection? Or do you feel like each fashion brand has a different has different intentions about when they're designing for kids?
I think a lot of mainstream brands are very similar, but there's niches that look completely different. Like lately, I don't know if you looked at Abercrombie Kids line. It looks phenomenal, and I think they're just dressing for a different child. It's comfortable, but it's sporty and it's super trendy, and I think that's a very different kid than when you walk into Target. But Target's a good example too, that they have multiple brands now. Like they have Art Class. It's slipping my mind what the other one is. Oh, Cat and Jack, and they're all for a different kid. So, right, it's the same components of children's clothing, but aesthetically, it's for a different child. And it's for their personality.
Okay.
So I definitely think same items approaching a different customer.
So something like Ralph Lauren, you feel like whoever is buying it, their kids has a different lifestyle than a parent whose kids they shop for at the Gap.
I think so.
Okay.
Those two are very similar, but still to a degree, I still think the Gap is a little bit more fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess my last question I ask is, what exactly about children do you find inspirational that takes you through your creative process?
just how active they're going to be in the clothing. I feel like you have to take that into consideration whenever you're designing anything. For girls, it's just every type of girl, right? So we have like a Nicole Miller sports line that we do, and she's super athletic, but then you have like this whole princess look where we will try to get some mesh or tutus in. So I just like envisioning what kind of child is going to be wearing this. That's a big thing for me. Our swim line is huge, and I'm able to do so many crazy things in there, and it's for every different type of girl.
Have you ever designed for boys?
So lately I did. I started doing sleep and underwear for boys. So that's been a different experience too.
Is
I
it
never
fun?
thought I'd be, it surprisingly is. My boys have been so into it. They're over my shoulder when I'm designing it. And I would have never thought either the way they transition. So when they were in toddlers, they were like in briefs, right? Then all of a sudden they discovered boxers, which is a trend in boys. So around age 5, they all seem to want boxer briefs. And that's something I would have never known. And that's how the selling reports too, that around size 5, they stop selling the briefs and start selling boxer briefs.
Wow.
And then eventually that size shifts into actual boxers.
Yeah, I noticed boxer briefs are more comfortable on them. And also,
Yes.
you know, I don't want to put my son on the spot, but he always likes his privacy these days. So if he's wearing briefs, he doesn't want to feel like, you're looking at me. It's like,
No,
it's more like
it's true.
pants.
Yeah, I thought it
So,
was just my kids, but when I was talking to the buyer, it's a selling point.
yeah,
They
boxer
definitely,
briefs
I
are
think
great.
she said it was 80% of the business was boxer briefs versus
Wow.
briefs at that age.
Wow.
Yeah. That's good. That's cool. Thank you. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Sorry,
No
I asked so
problem.
much questions.
No, you're
No,
totally
that was
fine.
great.
Thank
You know, you brought up sleepwear. I feel like sleepwear is something we didn't really touch on before about all the safety measures, but that's one where there's only like 2 different kinds of fabric you can basically use in sleepwear. So it's very limiting on a designer, but I feel like that's
I
when
just learned that in the last few weeks because we designed a couple of things. We thought they were fine. Obviously, the fabric was flame retardant, which is fine. So either you have to have tight fitting sleep, or if it's a looser fit, it has to be flame retardant. But there were also other things that we didn't know. The bow can only be a certain size. So even if the fabric is flame retardant, we had to shrink everything down to a 1/4 inch.
Oh, wow.
And even if you have a ruffle, it can't be bigger than a 1/4 inch because it could catch on something.
Oh, interesting.
So yes, sleep is very specific. We had to go back through and remove a lot of things.
Wow.
When it's tight fit, you're good. As long as it's tight fit, the fabric doesn't have to be flame retardant. You have to put that big yellow label on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very limiting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's definitely more about the prints and graphics there.
Yeah. How do you feel like is the best way to stay informed with all the different safety measures? I mean,
we do
usually
it through our production team and they reach out. So sleep was a new category for us. So they actually had to have their factory look into it. And that's what happened. We designed everything initially thinking, okay, it's flame retardant, it's good. But once the factory looked further into the safety measures, it turned out there were so many things that we didn't even know. Even the spec has to be different for the loose fitting. So it's almost 2 inches smaller. It's very specific.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I remember, I may have already mentioned this in a previous class, but I remember I got hand-me-downs from my sister for my niece who's 11 years older, and things had changed in safety. I'm like, I know that this is not safe anymore.
Yeah, no, it's true. It changes
Should I
every
put
year.
this on my kid? I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's hard for us too. We're very reliant on the factory letting us know what changed. It's not like this big, letter comes out every year to the children's industry letting you know. You kind of have to do your due diligence before shipping the product.
Totally. And I think it's California, right, where any person can just shop the racks and see that you've done something wrong and sue the company for it.
Yes.
So it's a real risk. I mean, it gets caught. People find it.
Oh, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Everything gets caught, even price discrepancies.
Yeah, always. Students, what other questions do we have? Jack. Jack, are you out there?
Yeah, I am. It's taking a long time for the video.
Oh, okay. No worries. Just making sure we didn't lose you. And Zaheda, I was just looking on the side while you were talking about this, about the clothes that turn into backpacks. when I search clothes that turn into backpacks, kids, I can't,
We
can't find
find
anything.
it. There's a whole brand.
Whoever they are, they need to work on their marketing.
Yeah, they do. It's like a whole
It's
thing.
video previews still just loading for some reason.
Okay. It's okay if it's not going to work.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and ask. But you mentioned that working in the kids apparel industry is just a lot more fun in general for being able to like create things that are like more out there. But do you think that a lot of it also has to do with just working for specific brands that you do right now, such as Betsey Johnson, which is like more punk inspired? So it's like you can like do a lot more of that compared to like other brands, or is that something that's just kind of in like industry wide? Like you just have more freedom.
I think it's industry wide. Yes, Betsey in particular is very fun, but even the Mario stuff where I thought it wasn't going to be that fun, it ended up being very cool. Like we did tie-dye dinosaurs and like where would you see that? You know, in men's, maybe you would. But you know, you can definitely be more creative and do things that you would never do in an older size range. Even our little ass and little lad, I feel like those are very basic, but they're still very fun. Like the consumer they're targeting is a very basic consumer, but you still have unicorns and mermaids and really cute things and just like this level of silliness that I don't know if you could really do in women's or men's wear.
Thank you. Have you worked for any like children's brands that you said like weren't fun, that they actually do take a lot of their work like really more subdued or seriously? Maybe like I'm trying to think, you know,
Yeah,
because I
I'm
can't
trying to
think.
rake my brain too. I would think
Yeah.
like maybe if I was like at Ralph Lauren or something, right? Like you're kind of just doing plaids and things. So it might be that too. It might be all the brands that I've ever worked for aren't like that. It's mostly been girls' dresses, and then where I am now, we have Little Lad. So we have Little Lass and Little Lad. Those are our private labels. But even Little Lad, we've started having to make more fun just to improve sales. So we might have like a huge monster, but a zipper opens his mouth. Whereas before it was mostly suspenders and plaids, but that stopped performing.
Okay.
Like
Thank you.
uniforms. I feel like uniforms is probably a little bit sad.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. There's probably nothing in uniforms that you could really do.
Yeah.
And even boys, you would think it's boring, but it's actually not. I feel like boys have gotten a lot more creative.
And trendy too. Like I
Yes.
feel like there's so many little boys' outfits that just look like, you know, a more trendy man's outfit.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I used to think boys was so boring, and it's really not. There's so many
Yeah.
brands out there that are just doing a really good job of it.
Anything else, Jack?
No, I think it's all. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay.
No problem.
Justin, how about you?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So I have a question. Do you see more gender neutral clothes coming into kids?
That's a great question. Yes, for sure. That has been a huge trend, I want to say, for at least 3 years now. And it's just growing bigger and bigger. So we actually do, I feel like I see it the most in layette.
In
We're
what?
starting to see it in layette. So that's our baby size range, newborn to infant. So gender neutral is growing the most there in baby blankets, baby accessories, all of that. We get a lot of requests. I'm starting to see it in toddler. We don't run a line that's completely gender neutral yet. It's mostly in our baby items, but I definitely am seeing it in other places where they just don't label it anymore.
Right.
It could be a pink and gray tie-dye, but it's for anyone.
Interesting.
It's kind of
Thank you.
refreshing to see that. I like
Yeah.
it.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Jack, did you have another question?
Yeah, going off of what Justin said, have you had any like pushback or criticism from like any like gender neutral kind of style clothes from kids? Because I know like within the fashion industry, androgyny or gender neutral clothing being like still somewhat kind of newish, like, or at least coming into the mainstream, still gets its criticism alone. But I would imagine that having that creep into children's clothes probably would be more of like a more sensitive like area to some people.
I think that's probably why most of the requests we've gotten for it are in baby. I think it could maybe be an issue in older size ranges, like people aren't that accepting of it yet. You know, like if you did another thing, Target again, right? Because I feel like they do a lot of that, but I feel like they have a lot of gender neutral in their store and they haven't gotten any pushback at all. But someone like us who's shipping to multiple stores such as TJ Maxx, Marshalls, we might have a bigger issue. But when you're doing it in baby, nobody really notices, right? Because if you're shopping for baby shower and you don't know the gender, it's kind of helping you out. And in general, I think that's a trend right now for babies. I've seen gender neutral nurseries, like that's just a movement there. And I don't think anybody's criticizing that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But in
Yeah, and
the
I think
older
if
size
you're,
ranges, I'm
if
curious.
there's a lot, you know, a lot around giving a gift too. Like you, even if you do know the sex, like people probably prefer to do those gender neutral things in the layette zone where it's a gift.
Yeah.
Whereas like the gifts fall off the older they get usually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I will say, like from like watching the mother's message boards over, you know, I mean, my daughter's 5, so I've only been on them like 5 years, but it is really interesting to me how much more often people are putting out, you know, I have a bag of clothes. If you want it, it's all gender neutral, you know, come pick it up XYZ or whatever. And I think that is definitely more of a thing that people are paying attention to in a way that didn't feel like they were 5 years ago. But
no, for sure. I've seen even moms post things while they're in a store. They're like, oh, do you think this is for boy and girl or boy or girl? And everyone will start writing back and be like, who cares? Just buy it. If it's cute and you want it for your kid, just buy it. So there's definitely a shift happening. I haven't seen it in our company where we're comfortable doing it in older size ranges yet, just in the baby group.
That's interesting. I wouldn't really have guessed it would start with baby clothing, at least. I wonder if it has something to do with the parents being typically in control of what their children wear. I'm from the Midwest, so I know people have a little bit more conservative views out there.
Yeah,
it could be. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, if you have a child who prefers to dress, you know, if you have a girl who prefers to dress more like a boy or a boy who prefers to dress more like a girl, their bodies are pretty much the same. It's not like adult man and adult woman where you have a lot more, you know, typically you have a lot more of a shift in the way that their bodies present. So I feel like if you have a child that prefers that opposite sex clothing, you can just go to that floor and shop it more easily. I guess it's not necessarily the same thing as gender neutral, but you know, if you're a little bit more fluid on like what you want to put your child in or what your child wants to be put in, then I feel like you can actually do that crossover a lot more easily than you could if you were a grown human. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of brewing in the mom boards too, where they're like, can they just take the labels off in stores in general and not have a boys and girls section? But I don't think that would go over well for most of the country. There's pockets of the country where maybe it would be okay, but there's definitely people who want to shop by department.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out. There's definitely
we'll see how the mentality is shifting. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's only a matter of time before we get to the tipping point, and it's more of the majority.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Marcia, did I see your hand back up again? Did you have some things?
Hi, sorry again. I was actually wondering the same thing. You guys were just discussing it. I was just wondering if you thought that they would ever get rid of the boy-girl section and just have one section, or if you think they would keep the boys and girl section but have like start having more like a third section for unisex. Do you think they'll just do that, just have 3 sections from now on?
That's an interesting
or
thought.
It could be just by store, like how they want to do it and their customer.
I feel like it would be by store. So in my head, I see someone like maybe a Zara or H&M moving towards not having labels at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see it like in your Macy's or somewhere like that. I think they're always going to have boy, girl. So maybe that shift will eventually occur. But I don't know if there would be a third department, because then that's that whole further separation, right? Like you should shop here. You can't just wear whatever you want to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I always
my
thought
thought.
that oh yeah, I totally get it and respect it. I always thought that the layette section was always kind of like a unisex, you know, because people often get like a yellow whenever they don't know the gender, or they would have just like ducks or bears. Like I always assumed that layette was like a like a genderless area for the most part? Or is, I mean, how is it how are they transforming the layette, like their collections to become more unisex?
I think they just have so we do it as pieces. So we still have a boy and girl line, but we might have a few pieces in between that would be gray and turquoise, for example, is a really popular gender neutral combination. And then it's basically where they want it to sit. If they want it to be on the boys' floor or the girls' floor, knowing they're gender neutral. I haven't walked into a store and seen that middle section. Have you, Caroline? I always see it as
No,
boy, girl.
I haven't. Yeah.
It's
I
just where
haven't,
they
but I
end up
wouldn't
wanting
say,
to have
yeah.
it sit.
Yeah. I was thinking of the company primary.com. If anyone's familiar with that, like I feel like their entire site is totally neutral. Like
There's no
it's
gender.
not, there's no way to discern, yeah, like if what's typically presenting for a girl and typically presenting for a boy, it's like all just available.
Yeah, and I think there are going to be stores that pop up like that.
Yeah, but they don't, though that particular store I don't think has an in-person presence.
No, they're just online. I'm
yeah.
not even sure how they're doing. They've been around for what, 2 years now? Maybe 3?
Yeah. I feel like it's like one of those Instagram ones that really hits you hard on advertising, and I have no idea how well they do. But I mean, I see a lot of people with their kids in their pajamas and stuff, like posting. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's cute.
Yeah. But they kind of go out of their way to not have labels on things and not, no graphics, things like that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I have a million questions, but
No,
I was just
you've
very
been
interested
so
today.
Great.
Thank you.
No, and you know what, Marsha,
Good.
I feel like you're very similar to me in that, you have a child yourself, and it sort of shifts your gears, being like, I've always been so obsessed with women's fashion. Now I'm obsessed with my child's fashion, so maybe I should switch what I'm focused on. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe it too about boys too. Oh, I'm sorry, what?
No, and it's a valuable perspective, I feel like, when you're in the industry to be a parent and have gone through that.
Yeah, you would only know if you become a parent. You don't really pay attention yet until you do.
Yeah, very true.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions out there? I think that's it. Zaheda, it's been so wonderful to see you kind of in the flesh.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
Great. Well, we'll be in touch, and have a great day.
Yeah, you too. I'm gonna find that backpack and send it to you.
Oh yeah. Let me know. I'm actually interested to see that.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Students.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Bye. No problem.
Students, I was just going to end with attendance question in person. Since it seemed to go over well last time and we have a good chunk of time. Wondering if you would want to pursue a job in children's wear design after what you learned today, and why or why not? Jack, you want to kick off?
I'll definitely say that my interest in children's wear has definitely increased after that, because for me, like, children's wear is like, I probably thought about it zero.
Yeah.
I think mostly because, like, most of the children's wear I see, like I said, like, I'm from the Midwest, so there's not really a lot of children's like boutiques per se, but mostly the clothing that I see, like, say in a Target or Walmart, where pretty much a lot of the children's clothing is like, the boys' clothing has the dinosaurs and the girls' clothing has the butterflies.
Right.
So, yeah, so I'm particularly interested when Justin started bringing up like topics because it was like, oh, there's actually like, topics and like trends going on in regular fashion that can still also apply to children's wear too, where it doesn't have to just be so, I would say cut and dry or simple or straightforward.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Michaela.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Personally, I'm not sure if I would, because I work in retail and I'm in charge of the kids department at my job, and I know how like frustrating, can be shocking for children. I didn't know how far the limitations could be with designs. Like I was surprised you told me they had to shorten the bow on a pajama design
Yeah.
for things like that. But I do feel like there's money to be made because children are always growing and they grow very fast. So parents always have to come in and buy a lot of clothing. But I don't know. I don't think I'd like being that limited with design.
Yeah, that's fair. Thank you. Anna, how about you?
Yeah, I would definitely consider I mean, I love like graphic design and ultimately putting that all together on a screen to present. But as far as I feel like I would be an imposter there because I don't want children, but I would like to work with like, the fun elements that children's wear gets to have. But then I feel like if I was in that workspace, I feel like there'd be a lot of people are like, well, you don't even have kids. So like, how would you know? But
yeah, I mean, I feel like we just ended sort of on that note when we were talking with Marcia, but at the same time, I feel like a great many people that I worked with when I worked in children's wear didn't have kids.
Yeah.
And good, a good eye is a good eye as a designer. And, if you're designing for kids or adults, honestly, unless you are super, super lucky, no matter where you land, it's probably not going to be exactly your aesthetic that you're designing for anyway. It's figuring out what your customer wants and how you can design for the trend and the look. So,
for sure.
I don't think you'd feel that way.
Yeah.
And you were once a kid. So even if you're not going to have
Exactly.
kids, you still have that perspective that you can lean back on.
For sure. Yeah.
So, thank you. Amber.
Hi, Professor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, yeah. So I guess like after this discussion, I learned a lot more about children's wear, but at the same time, I feel like I would want to still stay in women's wear. Wait, did I say children's wear? Yeah. But if I were to have my own brands, I would like to have like options for people of all ages. So I guess like I wouldn't specifically go into children's wear, but I would like to incorporate a lot of that into my brand. Yeah, and what I found interesting was a lot of the safety protocols they have for children's clothing. I knew that there were safety protocols for the fabrics, but I didn't know so much about the closures, like ties and zippers and stuff like that. So that is something to consider when you're actually making clothing for children because you want it to be safe for them. And one last thing was, I think someone asked a question about incorporating like couture into children's wear. And I thought that was very interesting. And I feel like if I were to incorporate children's wear into my brand, I'd want to make, I guess, like clothing that makes a statement.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. It's interesting. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Something Navy, the influencer who has now launched her own brand, but she also launched a children's wear line at the same time as her own women's wear brand, or virtually the same time. I mean, she kind of dabbled in the brand a little bit at Nordstrom, and now she's doing it on her own, which is interesting because you don't usually see that. Usually people try out one size zone or try out one category of business before they kind of branch out and do more. So I'm interested to see how that goes for her. But a lot of what works for her, I think, is that she is a mom and fashionable, and she kind of goes back and forth between the two. So I like that perspective. Josie, how about you?
I think it sounds really fun. I really like colors and prints and like big graph. I think this is a good description.
Yeah, we can tell.
Yeah, and I think that designing with the concern for like safety, like the closures and the fabrics and everything would be kind of a fun like challenge, mixing that with the more colorful prints and fabrics and stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I like that take. Cool. Thank you. Miranda.
Hi, I'm definitely split about it. I always like whenever I go to Target, I always like get lost in the children's section. I just look at all the cute little appliques on everything. And I used to work with kids, so I'd see all these kids costumes, like when they were all in their Disney princess costumes. They're so cute. But I feel like you're very limited with the proportions of kids' garments. They're very similar. So it's like you have more fun with prints and stuff like that, but then you're more limited with silhouette and comfort. So I'm very split, but it's something I'm interested in.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Marcia, how about you?
Yeah, I absolutely would pursue a career in children's wear. For one, like having my own experience with children, I love shopping for children. I love being in the children's section. I love being in the baby section. It's just such a great feeling for me personally. And I myself have often been compared to have like this childlike mentality, which I definitely own. But I feel like that would be a great trait to have working in children's wear because it helps you to think about what it is that kids like and what's important to them, and just the aspect of the different kind of precautions that you have to take into consideration. That portion of it definitely means a lot to me. And I just feel like I would be very passionate working in that field, just because as a parent, it's just so important to make sure that all these things tie together when you're creating a collection. So I just feel like it would be like a personal level for me. I feel like it would be a good fit.
Yeah, cool. Great. Thank you. Philip. Philip Michael. Mike? I feel like, did you tell me on the first day that you like to be called PM? Am I making that up?
Yeah, PM is fine because often I being a hyphenated name and it's two first names, people end
Okay.
up sometimes just saying Michael, so PM is just easier.
Okay.
But I don't know if I would jump right into children's wear right away. I feel like if I had a child, I'd design stuff for my child, of course, because it's my child. But
Yeah,
I
that'd be
think
fun.
I think with the way that I would probably design and with the restrictions that they have, I think it would be a little bit hard. But I think over time I would try to maybe assess that market, especially with the lack of like unisex, because um, I think kids are getting more creative and expressing their self a little bit more. That I think it goes beyond pinks and blues and things of that nature. So I think cuts and
Totally.
silhouettes are definitely more expressive. Like if they want a pleated if a more masculine child wants a pleated moment for a skirt or anything like that, I think exploring mixing the genders and things of that nature. So
Yeah, yeah. I do feel like there is a white space there that is probably going to get filled sometime soon,
yeah,
or started on at least. Thank you.
absolutely. Hmm.
Justin.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, just like PM, I don't think I'll just jump right into it, but I'll definitely be open-minded to it. I think it's very, um, you could get a little bit more creative with kids wear, just like anything else. But even making like kids wear for like adults would probably be weird too. But something I probably haven't seen too much of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
don't know. It's something to consider, or something you could definitely like go into a whole new world with.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Allison, how about you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I would go into it. Like maybe if I have a kid, then it'll like give me a new perspective. But I feel like most of my design elements are choking hazards. And there's like a lot of limitations.
Yeah.
Flame resistant and like the button size, and I don't remember what else it was, like or something. I really
Yeah, it's
like those
surprising.
details. Like I really like
It's very surprising. Yeah.
right? Like I like little beatings and stuff, but then like they might break it and eat it or something. I don't really know. So I feel
Yeah.
like it wouldn't be a good fit for me.
Well, interesting
So
to hear.
yeah.
Thanks. Jessie.
Hi.
Hi.
I would love to design for like children's wear because I feel like if you see me, like I'm very like there's a lot going on here, but it's like every time I dress up, I always try to like put on like a different like vibe or costume, so I kind of relate to like a kid that way with like an imaginative mind. So I think I could design down the line. And I was thinking of like I know someone mentioned like having designing for an adult, but like making like a kid's version of it. Like I would think that would be a cool concept to have like like an older person, a little person, like the same outfit. So I see
Yeah,
that.
yeah. But definitely. If you don't follow something Navy, you should check her out because she's definitely got that vibe going. In a more fashionable way than I feel like a lot of the mommy and me look
Yeah, more fashion, like
usually
more
looks.
couture. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Cool. Thank you. Azat.
Yes, I mean, hi. I used to work as a graphic design before starting fashion design. Yes, I would like to do some I will do graphic design for children's, but I will not go far because there's a lot of like details that is more like the kids like skin are sensitive, like more like it's a lot of maybe a lot of headache if you are not deep into it, right? You have to understand every like details, like choosing a right fabric, choosing the details like buttons or zipper, or not like making like how to say that, like it's I think it's very serious. It looks like fun, easy, but it's very serious to uh, have to work with children, to make something for children that they can use like wear,
Yeah.
because it's maybe like some kids like allergic skins or something, like it have to be like a more like I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, just graphic design I will do, of course. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Anyone else want to contribute? Lancey, I haven't heard from you yet. Do you have anything to add?
So for me, I haven't really think about a lot about children's wear, but I'm glad to learn a lot about it today. But so far, I don't think I will like jump right into children's wear because I feel like I still have more interest in women's wear. But it can definitely be like a direction for the future.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you got to learn a little bit about it today, even if it's not all of you, even if it's not your main interest. It's still nice to kind of have the perspective and secure your interest that you have already to know that you don't want to do something, which is also important.
Yeah.
Thanks. Justin.
Hi, I just wanted to say, I know Jesse followed up with my question about adults wearing kids wear. There is this brand called Heaven by Marc Jacob, which is kind of new, and it's like very similar to that, like where they're wearing like a lot of playful colors and like wearing teddy bears and like dressing up like little kids.
Oh yeah, it's cute.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it on the side. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I just wanted to share it. Sorry.
They also opened a store in LA. Like it's like it looks like a whole playground in there.
Oh yeah?
I think it just opened today or yesterday.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but it's cool. It's
Making
like very
shopping
playful.
fun again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like fun stuff. Thank you. Vasilisa.
Yes, perfect. I didn't go yet. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you. I can't quite see you yet, but there you are.
All right. Yeah, so in my opinion, whenever we sell children's wear, kids' clothes, first of all, we sell it not for kids, but for their parents. And I wouldn't want to work for kids' wear brand or work specifically in this area. But if I ever have my own brand or work for a brand which produce clothing for parents, for adults, I would definitely think to add on kids wear. And the main reason would be that once parents or adults build up the trust to any brand, either high-end brand or mass market, they would prefer to dress up their kids in the same clothes they are dressing up just because they already build up the trust to the brand, and
Yeah, they're loyal.
they have the loyalty, and they also would like to get as much stuff as they can get from that specific brand, and that actually applies to the home goods as well. So um, I would say Zara in that matter is went like a little bit further. There are no home goods stores in United States, but in Europe they have like special departments with the home goods, and they have kids wear as well. So I think having ability to sell products or goods for different lifestyle or different parts of the like life for the adults is the big advantage and a big plus.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Hawa.
Hi. I just
Hi.
wanted to add, like, I never really thought about doing children's wear, but I am like a kid myself. Maybe in the future when I do have children, because I have to be around my child probably and see their energy and understand. I mean, I'm the oldest and I've always babysat, but I guess I have to be an adult and I have to like tap into that authoritative figure to see like,
Yeah.
okay, how would I want my child to dress? Be in mom mode, because I know you guys discussed, like you guys definitely changed as you guys
Yeah.
became mothers, and you focus on them more. Maybe I won't focus on me because right now I'm on me and my femininity, and that's what my brand is about, embracing
Yeah.
sexuality. So maybe once I tap into mom mode, I'm like, you know what? I want my child dressing like this.
Yeah.
Like the
Well, it's
thought.
very fun working at a place or designing in a place that's for yourself and something that you really love and are passionate about. So, no, that totally makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ariana.
Hi. I thought it was interesting to learn about children's wear, but I wasn't previously interested in it, and I'm not really still interested in it. I think because like the more like experimental, artful side of fashion has always interested me, and I feel like with children's wear, there's a lot more like practicality involved, and it's more like sensible kind of with like the kinds of fabrics you can use and like comfortability and what kids would wear. And I feel like while all clothes have like you have to consider practicality, I feel like it's just a little more limiting children's wear. But it was definitely interesting to learn about.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. William.
Yeah, so I guess I would be interested in like trying children's wear, maybe just like a little bit. I couldn't see myself like going into it too much. Like I used to work as like a substitute teacher in like a lot of elementary schools, so
Oh, wow.
I feel like I'm kind of tainted because I'm used to seeing kids like run around and be kind of
Destroy
like
their
rough.
clothes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that my design aesthetic would necessarily lead to like lots of durability, like in that sense for clothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
But I mean, I think the child aesthetic, it would be interesting to try out though.
Yeah. It's fun. Thank you. Let's see. Jennifer, you there? I don't see her name actually. Okay. Kathleen?
Hi. I don't think children wear is necessarily for me. It just seems like there's a lot of different things you have to like keep like on top of in regards to, like regulations and the fact that it's always changing and like safety protocols.
Yeah.
But it was definitely interesting hearing what she had to say.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I will say, I feel like if you have a good production partner, they're the ones who are going to keep you in the loop on those things. But yeah, it's something you have to think about while you're designing, which is annoying. Haley.
Hi. I don't know if children's wear is like necessarily for me because I'm more interested in evening wear, and I think that like I'm more interested in like the details and like more elegant kind of designs. Maybe the only thing that I would do is like communion dresses or like something like
Oh
that where it's
yeah.
like children's wear for a special occasion. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Actually, so the company I worked at with Zaheda really was a more formal girls' dresses company, you know, more in that like very tool driven, the way people used to dress for Easter or the way that they used to dress for Christmas, that sort of thing. But lately, I don't think people dress that way as much, so it's more of a limited audience. So interesting. Thank you. Matthias.
Hi, I don't think I'm going for the children's wear. I think there are limited things you can do in children's wear.
Yeah, I hear that. How about you, Abby Grace?
Hi. It was interesting to learn about, but like Haley said, I'm really interested in like bridal and formal wear, which is much more like detailed. So I just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not for me, but it would be interesting. Just
Cool.
not what I want to do.
Yeah, you'd rather do what Karen was doing. I hear you. Daria.
Hi.
Hi. I met one person named Daria once, but I feel like it's really Daria, right?
Yeah, it is really Daria.
She totally messed with me for the rest of my life. I'm like, oh, so sorry.
That's okay. Everybody gets it like that the first few times.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think I'd be interested in children's wear because I really like focusing on like technical details. So like having to work with the closures and watch out for like safety hazards. Like I think that'd be a fun challenge.
Like a puzzle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that. Thank you. Monica.
Hi.
Hi.
So maybe not children's wear design, but I think it was interesting what she was talking about the graphic artist and how that person has to kind of like interpret the direction of where they're going and kind of put that into print and graphics. So I think that would be interesting.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Simone.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would design for children's wear, but I think I would definitely consider it. I used to work actually like in the Bloomingdale's children's department. So like
Oh yeah.
yeah, it was like fun like helping the kids and like their like personalities are like developing. So like they kind of were like all over the place and like, you know, picking different things. So I think it would be fun and like challenging to kind of like work in children's wear and try and, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a leg up if you already kind of know the customer base. It's great. Cool. Jacqueline.
Hi. I've never really thought about going into children's wear. I think my own personal design style it wouldn't really like blend well with children's wear, but today definitely brought a new perspective on it and made it a lot more interesting than I thought it was.
Great. Thanks. Shuyun.
Hi.
Hi.
So I don't think I would be interested in children's wear for now because I don't have kids and yeah, but it's interesting to learn much about it, and this is my first time to get to know more about children's wear, and I like the idea that it could be more creative on children's wear, so I may considering it. Just I'm not sure. Maybe not.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Caleb.
Hi, Professor.
Hi.
So I don't think that my personal design aesthetic fits well with children's wear, but it was really interesting to someone's point of view. I've never heard from someone in the industry before.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Well, thank you. Zaheda actually texted me on the side that the name of the company she was thinking of with the backpack things is called Cupcoats. And this is This is it. Can you guys see this on my website? It's pretty interesting, but I also feel like this is the type of stuff that's gimmicky and totally works with kids. I'm gonna look at the backpack ones. They're more like hoodies, I guess. Zip up hoodies that turn into backpacks. Like this first one. Oh, look at that. That's a really good way to display it. Yeah, it does kind of look like Rockets of Awesome. Yeah, I agree. Sorry, my screen just went into infinity mode. But this is super cute. And I feel like something that both boys and girls can totally get into. Anyway, thank you guys so much. And yeah, I agree, Marcia. Kids' clothes are fun. It's that time of day where my dog starts getting really annoying, so I won't miss that when we go back in person. Hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you all next week for, oh, Marcia, did you have a question?